Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jake Milstein. I am the event host and CMO at CI Security here. It looks like people are still coming into the room. So I'll get to introductions in a second. We're going to talk a lot about cybersecurity today. The topic of today's discussion is, am I big enough to need cybersecurity? Really, the question is, businesses, organizations, big and small, is there, do you still get targeted the same way if you're not a large institution? If you're not the University of Texas Medical Center, do you still get targeted? And if so, what do you do about that? And we're going to talk a lot about that today. One thing to know is, in all of the events that we do, we try to keep things lively. So this is not going to be one of those presentations where there are a bunch of slides going by. Instead, we're going to have a great panel discussion here with some real experts to talk about things. And if you look over on the right hand side of your screen, there's a chat. I'm going to type hi in the chat, and you all should put questions in. And as you have questions, put them in there. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know what your questions are. Essentially, hey, it's free consulting hours, right? You have a question about your organization, you have a question, something you've always wondered, let us know. And if you don't ask questions, then I'll be stuck asking all of the questions, which is fine with me, but come on, ask some questions. Okay, well, it looks like people are still coming in, but we'll get started here. As I said, I work at CI Security, and we're here today with Frankenstein Computers and Networking, great organization that we partner with. In the course of preparing this, I've gotten to know Tony and Matt, and they are just awesome guys who want the best for their customers and their clients. We, CI, our mission is to protect and defend organizations, and we really only work with partners that have the same belief that the world needs to be a more secure place. We got to beat the cyber criminals together, and couldn't say more great things about the work we've done with Tony and Matt. Speaking of them, they're on the right here. Matt Ragsdale, senior engineer at Frankenstein. Tony Tudyk is the president. Fred Langston works with me at CI. He is a 25-year veteran of cybersecurity. He's worked in hospital environments. He's worked in construction environments. He's worked in manufacturing, financial, and he's our executive vice president of professional services, and just a wealth of knowledge. And again, I said, my name is Jake. One important thing to know is stick around. There will be prizes. Tony and Matt wanted me to give away a car, but that's not in the cards for today. So instead, we'll be giving away different prizes. And the way that works is at the very end, you'll have an opportunity to fill out a survey. In the survey, you can ask for a gift card, and we love giving gift cards. You can also donate to a food bank instead. And one of the things we've been doing is donating to Texas food banks, which of course, got tons of requests with the latest, power outages and cold snap and everything down there. So you'll have that choice in the end, but stick around for the survey because we love giving away prizes. We love the survey because it tells us, how we're doing on these presentations. You can ask questions if you didn't get to ask them in here, and we love donating to people who deserve it. And so now let's get started. So question number one, Fred, for organizations that are not giant organizations, they're not the U.S. government. They're not a large hospital system. Are they really targets for cybercrime?
So I like to preface this discussion with a statement I've been making probably in every presentation I've made in the last month, which is tons of them. And that is the current environment, they're not really targeting we don't think of it the same way where they're targeting a defense contractor. And why would they want to target you? Because they're not out specifically, although they still are stealing secrets. They're out to really make money, right? This is a commoditized business at this point. The main idea is to find anyone who has a particular technology or vulnerability that's exposed, take advantage of that, and then usually extort them in some form or fashion with ransomware, maybe to threaten that they're going to expose your data if you don't pay them. They're going to ruin your reputation. This has become, I'm going to show you in a little bit, we'll get to it in a little bit, but this has been utterly and completely commoditized. So the approach they use now, the bad guys go out and they create what they call a botnet, meaning kind of like robots. They have these systems that they've compromised. It might be your system, could be your home system, could be a phone, could be a system that runs the traffic light on the corner, because that's a computer too, right? And all they need when they capture these computers, they want the network, the ability to use the network, and the processing power. Don't really care what it is, don't care what it does. So the first place you're targeted is you just may be one of these random people that they want to use your computer to launch massive attacks against other people. So that in itself, just if they want to use your processor and your network, that makes you a target. The second part of that is they use these massive botnets, millions of computers all massed together. And to say that when I say they target systems and vulnerabilities, they, for example, you may have read in the newspaper or not newspaper, on the news about the Exchange vulnerability. Hafnium is the group that's taking advantage. This is a mini cyber Pearl Harbor, and it's been happening the last week. My teams have been working 24 hours a day, responding to that, to dozens of customers that have been compromised. It is bad. Was there any targeting of any of this? One of the biggest attacks that we've seen and most impactful? None. They're looking for systems that have a particular vulnerability. Doesn't matter if you're a one-man shop or if you're the Pentagon. If you have that system and it's exposed to where they can get to it, these millions of systems are going to look all day and all night relentlessly, and they're going to find them. They're going to find everything on the internet that has this characteristic, and then they're going to launch an attack. Because these are machines. It's not people, right? It's a machine that's programmed to go do a specific set of actions. It never gets tired, never gets bored, never gets frustrated. It just keeps on doing what it does. So in this day and age, the targeting is really based on what you have and what vulnerabilities or weaknesses are associated with that, and whether it's exposed to a particular, we call them bad actors, they could be criminals, could be nation states that are trying to take out like utilities, right? If they're trying to impact our way of life and disrupt our way of life, they're going to go after things like utilities and things that you wouldn't think are computers, like like I mentioned, the traffic lights in the street. Everything's a computer now. Everything, right?
Exactly.
Everything. So it's really about a commoditized approach. It's not who you are, it's what you have and what are they coming after. So that's the main thing I want to say, that everybody is a target, and it's just based on the scale in which these scanning and this attack can happen. Jake, you want to pass it over?
Yeah, well, so I do want to ask a question there. So let's go back to who's coming after you. You touched on in there, there's this, there's the stereotype that it's a guy in his basement in a hoodie. But that's not even close to who it is. Who are you? Fred, we're cleaning up systems for people. Who are we seeing?
So, what we're really seeing are people that are, if you will, part of a business. Usually they call them APTs, Advanced Persistent Threat Groups. Really, it's a criminal gang. They may be supported fully by the government. It might be part of a government. They may be supported kind of surreptitiously by the government. In other words, we want you to do bad things because you disrupt another country for us. Go ahead, steal as much as you can. Good. And hey, if you happen to come across some really sensitive information on that new, military installation, pass it over to us. We'll throw you a few bills as well in the process, right? So they get a separation, right? It's not really the Russians, not really the Chinese, but it's Russians and Chinese, and they're not being stopped by their government who knows they're doing it, right? So that is a big component of it. You could have everything from the disgruntled employee, right? Again, in a minute, I'm going to show you how easy this is to do, but a disgruntled employee can take revenge merely by logging onto a site on the dark web and ordering an attack. And they can actually split the proceeds with the attacker, where they say, you take 50% and I'll take 50%. So you can have a disgruntled employee that just, I'm gonna make that bonus they didn't give me anyways, and I'm gonna hurt them in the process.
Fred, I'm gonna pull up your slide here that shows just how easy it is to be a crook. Can you talk about this?
Sure. So this is one page out of thousands, but we call this kind of the Amazonization of hacking. Basically, this person has their web page. It's real easy to find. It's not a mystery. They say the dark web, but just go to a search engine and say, I need hacking for hire. I'll give you 100 of these. And it tells you what they do, tells you what skills they have. It'll tell you some really bad and nefarious, diabolical things that they're willing to do to other people. And then they give you a price list, literally. So you can go in here and you can pick out what you want done, and you can use a Bitcoin wallet, just like a credit card, hit buy now, and they're off and taking care of an attack. Some of the more advanced ones can actually let you pick features. Hey, I want 10 million bots, these taken over computers, to run the attack. I want it to go for 8 hours. I want it to go against these targets. I want these objectives. If you hit them, I'll give you a bonus. So it's like ordering off Amazon. Anybody can do it. A disgruntled employee, if they learn how to, do a little bit on the dark web, which is install a few things and hit search, anybody can do this, right? So again, think about this as an industry. It's an industry. Hacking has become an industry, and there are all the tools, all the efficiency things, all the things we think makes a modern business efficient and run well. They've adopted them, and why not, right? It's maybe closing in on $1 trillion business, right? Hacking total. So why not, right? So that's how scary and how easy it is, Jake.
Well, thanks. That makes me feel a lot better, Fred. Hey, so Tony, you have customers that have that have dealt with some of this stuff. What are some of the things that they've seen, that you've seen?
We're seeing a lot more ransomware these days. Ransomware, and then attacks on email. One person, company, they had give us a call. They couldn't open anything on their server. They couldn't get to any of their files, their AutoCAD files. So we jumped in the server and took a look, and sure enough, everything was encrypted. One of the people that worked there clicked on what looked like a PDF, talking about their UPS order was going to be a little bit late, and he clicked on it, and nothing really happens. You click on it, nothing happens, so you don't worry about it, you don't think about it, and 3 days later, everything is encrypted. So fortunately for them, they followed our recommendations and had local and offsite backups with versioning, so we could continue to go back until 3, 4, 5 days until we found when they weren't encrypted, and restored that stuff. But still, I mean, they lost 4 or 5 days of production. 10 architects unable to bill, and it was a huge mess. It was a lot of stress. And that's going on all the time. I'd say once every other week, somebody's getting hit that we know that's one of our clients.
Yeah, and just so we know who we have in the audience here, folks who are in the audience, can you just type in the comment area how many people are in your organization? I'm curious. Are the people who are here, do you have 5, 10, 2, 20? Yeah, I see. So we have 2, 12. So Tony, when you're talking there about that about the organization that dealt with that, how many people were in that org?
I believe there's about 17 people that work there.
Mm-hmm. And do they have an IT team, or do they count on you for IT?
Yeah, they count on us for IT.
Right. And so, when they're dealing with something like that, did it happen during the day? Did they come in the morning and find out, or how did they find out?
Yeah. So, when the guy clicked on it, nothing really happens. So, you don't see anything that happens. And then it takes a couple of days. So I think it was 3 days later after that patient 0 got hit was when we get the call that we can't open anything. And then from there, we run and get things done. But that virus was crawling the network for 3 or 4 days before we knew about it.
Fred, let's talk about ransomware for a second, because that's what hit. Is ransomware really having an uptick, or is it just in the news more?
Well, not only is it having an uptick, it's getting more complex, the attacks. So one reason why you see 3 days, so about 3 or 4 years ago, when a ransomware hit, it would be minutes as it would move through and hopefully encrypt everything on your network. WannaCry, a couple of years ago, billions of dollars worth of damage, took out the company it started in about 15 minutes, hundreds of computers gone. But the bad guys have realized that's maybe not the best way to get all the money they can extract out of you. I'm going to spend, as Tony alluded to, it's a couple days between when they actually get in and they trigger the ransomware. That's usually because they're looking for sensitive stuff. They're stealing stuff because they want to, because if you tell them, you know what, I'm not paying your ransomware, I've got backups, I'm going to come back from backup. And they go, well, guess what? We stole your files and we're going to put them on the dark web. And we're going to not only let all your clients know their data is for sale, we're going to shame you publicly. So there's no escaping this, right? We got your data too. They're also getting better to understand that backups. People are going to rely on backups as the way to recover from this. So they're very good now about going and attacking your backup infrastructure. And if you're not following what's the 3-2-1 backup rule, which you can look that up, but it's 3 copies, 2 different places, 1 off-site, or 2 different types of media, 1 off-site, then you have a chance that they're going to know they can get to your backups and encrypt them as well. So they're going to take time, right? That's what the part of that time lag is. I'm going to go find out every way they can recover, and I'm going to make sure I block that avenue of recovery from them so I can get the money I possibly can. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's again, nothing is more commoditized than this. It's the background noise of the internet is ransomware attacks constantly trying to happen, right?
Yeah, and I saw something just yesterday, which is for the first time ransomware is really being used in politics. This is happening in India, but what's happening is there's a big political issue in India, and the Indian criminals are locking up organizations, and it's not over money. It's until you do our political will, we're just going to keep these organizations locked. And yeah, I know India is a long way away, but once that idea is out there, that idea is out there. Right. Tony and Matt, when you see, you can see folks in the audience here. The size of the organizations, 27 people, I think, is the biggest one I saw. How have you seen the attacks come in? Is it through email? Is it through a vulnerability? What have you seen?
Well, in general, most of the attacks usually come from clicking on a link. Yeah, usually in your email, or maybe you visited a website that had something embedded on it that you didn't realize was there. And this can be sites that you normally visit on a regular basis. Like maybe you go to Facebook, for example, and you think it's perfectly safe, but maybe one of the people that visits your page has something embedded on theirs, and now you got it too. And that's one of the things that they do. They also like to embed viruses on your system and then put a timer on them that don't activate for like 3 or 6 months. That way you don't even know when the origination of that infection was. So it's really hard to kind of pinpoint exactly where they come from, but in general, most of the reported ones are from email.
Yeah, phishing. I don't know if folks are familiar with the term, but phishing with a PH, is what that is, and I think it's more. I think last I saw is 91% of ransomware attacks came through phishing. I am curious for the people who are here. If you could type in the comments, are folks using Microsoft or Gmail for Microsoft or Google for email? Because if there are folks, we can talk about those as what are called attack vectors. Looks like a mix here of Gmail and Outlook. So a question about, let's talk about Outlook and then we'll talk about Gmail. If somebody's using O365, Microsoft's a big company. Shouldn't Microsoft catch those things and it not be a problem, Fred?
Well, it's all what you pay for, right? If you're familiar with Microsoft licensing, they have various levels, and as you move up in levels, you get more security features. Security folks aren't particularly thrilled with that pricing model. We think you should get all the security features at level 1 and add on the other stuff, but be that as it may. But I will say most people don't realize, even with the most basic accounts, to work with like your MSP like Frankenstein and figure out what kind of controls you want turned on, because there are a number of things you can check, like turn on banners that every time an email from external to your organization comes in, it pops up a warning and says, hey, it may look like it came, that address may look like it's from somebody inside, but why is it showing this banner that is coming from the outside? That's a real easy way to spot certain types of phishing where they impersonate somebody inside your company. That's just one of dozens, frankly, of things you can do to increase the basic security of your O365. Gmail, a little bit different, has different set of controls and is managed in a slightly different way. But there are ways to perform the similar types of controls in that environment. It's, I think, easier to manage, though, in O365, frankly, than other environments.
And Tony and Matt, do you recommend one over the other for folks in terms of security?
I mean, in general, I try to recommend 365 over Gmail just because they have a lot more security options. They've been in it longer, and they really give us better visibility for things like auditing and for being able to kind of track, the traffic that's going on the back end. So, as general practice, whenever we have a company with 365, one of the first things I do is turning on the audit. That way, if they do get broken into, I can trace to see where it came from, who was affected, how much and how deep that infection actually went. With Google, unfortunately, you can't do that. Thankfully, though, you can do things like multi-factor authentication for both of them. So, I mean, if I had to pick, though, 365 would be it.
I would agree.
And Art has a question. He says, can you transition, not lose all emails from Outlook to 365? Do you mean from Gmail to O365 or legacy Outlook to O365? I think he means legacy Outlook. Yeah. So can you go from legacy Outlook to O365 easily, Matt?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And generally, I mean, if you're using PST format and your service provider is, I don't know, Spectrum or one of the other off-brand email providers out there that doesn't have that layer of security, then we could easily transfer you over into the 365 environment, keep your emails, and manage that migration. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I want to tell a quick story here, which is, so one of the things that CI has is we have security operations centers that are manned 24/7. And one of the things we do is we watch the background of O365. So, when O365 kicks off an alert, you won't see it if you're not looking for it. And if you don't have somebody who's looking for it. And so our security operations center sees the alerts. Well, there was a case where a woman who was working at a public agency actually got a Facebook message. She was messaging with her friend, and she about hiking, and somebody then sent her an email and said, hey, I found a new hiking spot. and she thought it was her friend, and she clicked on it, and it went to an O365 login page. And sure enough, she's like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know." It didn't occur to her that that was weird, and so she typed in her username and password. And the thing is, our security operations center saw that. They saw her type the password in what's called clear text, which is not encrypted, and we called and made sure that that they closed down the account real fast. But yeah, I mean, we see that stuff happen all the time, and we monitor O365. So the other stuff is folks have firewalls, they have antivirus. Why isn't that enough? Why do you need more than that? Fred?
Well, the whole concept, frankly, to securing a lot of this stuff that has credential theft involved is adding another layer, and that layer is multi-factor authentication. Most of you probably maybe your bank or someplace are forcing you to use your phone to enter a code or maybe hit an approve button. Well, that's actually one of the best possible things you can do to protect any email environment or any environment where you're putting your credentials in. So email, absolutely. O365 for sure. We think that's a central control, and Microsoft provides a free version of two-factor authentication, real easy to turn on. Once it's turned on, I type my username and password, it pops up with a yes or no. Hey, yes, I'm logging in. That's it. That's all I have to do. But that gives you this layer of protection where if I do click on the bad link and enter my credentials, they still cannot get into my account. Now, I obviously have compromised credentials, but without this, they can't get in. So we've added really what is, I think, probably the most significant thing. If you're a small organization of the sizes we're seeing in this audience, that's the number one thing I would tell you to do. Turn on multi-factor authentication for email. That's going to save you from a multitude of, you can even make a mistake, right? And still enter those credentials and not have them compromise you. So there's little I can say that's probably the most impactful thing above and beyond that you can do.
And, question came in the chat for Tony, have you had clients experience an O365 account takeover?
We have. Matt just dealt with one. Cindy, I believe it was, that had an issue. If you want to cover that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had Cindy, one of our clients, a fairly decent sized organization, about 12 or 15 people. Their account was an administrator account. So they had all the administrative rights and privileges, and their account was compromised. They didn't have two-factor authentication turned on, and we were able to isolate the cause, but we didn't know that this had happened yet because they had hacked the account, broken in, and then they made a secondary account that they could access, and work from. And then they proceeded to try and pull as much of the data and information as they could before they started, doing what most of them do, is send out a bunch of spam and links to everybody on their contact list. Usually by the time that happens, of course, it's already too late. They've already gathered all the information. That's kind of like their exit strategy at that point. So yeah, the compromise thankfully was just with that account, but had they dug deeper, they could have compromised the rest of the company and pulled all the other emails out as well. And one account's bad, 15 is terrible.
Right.
So.
And you said they didn't have multi-factor authentication on, right? Yeah. I have to agree with Fred there. If there's any one thing you do today, if you don't have multi-factor authentication on, turn it on. I have to admit, I have a family member who didn't turn it on and ended up taking one of those 800 number calls from somebody who said your computer's been hacked, and they said, "Oh, here, let me give you access to my computer," and it went poorly. So Matt and Tony, when somebody comes to you and says, "Okay, something has happened. There's something fishy going on our system," what's the first thing you do?
the very first thing that I do, they usually reach out to me and go, "Hey, Matt, we got a problem." First thing I do is log into their account. I look to see if they have any kind of auditing. I look to see who's logged in at that time. Like, for example, in Gmail, you can actually see the active accounts that are logged in. You can do the same thing in 365. I jump into the admin center and I start collecting as much information and data to see just how bad the breach is. I also immediately advise them to change their passwords and set up two-factor if they don't have it. That's just the immediate go-to. Because sometimes, and people don't realize this, you can change your password, but things like 365, they have a cookie that maintains that security access even after you change that password for up to, was it 24 hours? I think it varies between the cookies, but the idea is there. So even if you change your password, you're still not safe, at least for a period of time. So, I mean, the very first thing we do is, there are tools that we can use to try and kick everybody out. It's inconvenient. It's very disruptive, but at least it allows us to really truly understand their security state and intervene where we need to try and patch it up, fix it up, and recover.
Got it. You said the phrase there, cybersecurity state. There's a phrase that gets tossed around the industry, Fred, which is cybersecurity program. What does it mean to have a cybersecurity program?
Well, for a smaller organization, it's not obviously not the same thing as a big multi-location 150, 2,000 person company. What you really need to do are have some basic things in place, and that is you need to be able to have visibility into what's happening on your network. So if you're not taking some active level of monitoring, maybe it's the antivirus alerts. If you've got a firewall, it's taking a look and seeing if that's throwing alerts at you. It's looking at O365 because O365 will quarantine a lot of things before it even gets to the user. So if you see, holy cow, I've got 500 things in quarantine from this week, you're being actively attacked at that point, right? So you need to take a look, right? Visibility is everything here to see actually what's going on. So I think one of the core things you need to do is have visibility. The other would be patching. If you're not keeping your systems patched, you're just at a horrible risk. And it's gotten so bad that the bad guys now are kind of racing the patch cycles. Even in the best organizations, 30 days is kind of the target. And they know that. So they're trying to attack and create things within 30 days because even the big organizations won't have patches rolled out. So we're actually to the point of recommending when something critical comes out, like the Exchange vulnerability this week, if you have an Exchange on-prem server, if you haven't patched it, I guarantee you've been hacked.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. It's everyone, 60,000 organizations now have been hacked. And that was because they moved so quickly that they beat everybody to rolling the patch out. So what this means is the bad guys are racing all of us to get our machines patched and get those security vulnerabilities fixed. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have daily, so your machine goes and looks and says, do I need to add a patch today? And you have it, so it adds it, within that week. Good. If it's not doing that, and you're not going and checking, you probably have significant vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And when question in the chat here, that seems like a lot of work for a small team. How do you know? How do you know when one of those things comes out, and how do you know what to do about it? Yes, Matt.
Well, in my case, I'm subscribed to several different mailing lists that actually send me security updates from several major places. Some sites that really kind of give me a lot of technical experience, so I could see 0 day when things are compromised, and the severity of that compromise. And so I monitor that pretty regularly to see if there's anything major coming out or that we need to take action on. But I mean, that's really, patching and whatnot in general, for most computers, we set it up to automatically patch, even though it tends to be inconvenient for some of the clients. Your computer randomly rebooting during the day, like, why did that happen? Well, you probably got a security update. To servers, we do have a patch cycle for our servers, and like you said, most people are aware of this. But when critical patches come out, obviously, we push. There was a major security patch that had to come out for the Sonic wall, for example, and a huge vulnerability was exposed. We immediately sent emails out to all of our clients saying, if you have a Sonic wall, we need to get in there. We need to patch this. So, we try to stay on top of those kind of things.
I know it can be, it can all sound daunting, because it sounds so scary, and it doesn't sound easy to stay up to date on all of these things. So, if you have a small team, it's probably alarming to hear. Fred, so a question about CI. When an organization of the size, 27, 22, 2 people, 3 people calls CI, what are they usually asking for from us?
It could be a number of things. And we have plenty of clients of all those sizes. It may be helping them understand what we're talking about here. What should I, as a small 2-person company, be doing? Right? What are the things I should be doing? And, sometimes we do very small engagements where we just sit down for a day and go over all the types of things that they need to be concerned with, and trying to come up with something appropriate for the size and character of the organization. Because as everybody knows here, you're a small organization. You don't have the resources that a large organization has. So it's about doing things that are appropriate for your organization. A lot of it is turning on the things that you have at your disposal to make life easier, like automatic patching, so the machine patches itself, at least once a week, right? And you can set it to do it on a particular schedule, so it's not so impactful. But that's going around probably once, making sure the machines are all set up for automatic patching. And then occasionally you're going to have something that'll break, right? And that's just Microsoft for you. But that fixing something once every 6 months is infinitely better than fixing every computer you have that lost all the data that you have to rebuild from scratch. Yep. So the economies make sense to turn on those kinds of features, even if there's a hiccup every once in a while.
Yeah, what was that old joke? If your Ford rebooted as many times as your Windows computer, you'd never buy a Ford again. Yeah. But here we are continuing to buy Windows, and I mean, my wife has a Mac. I don't know that it's actually any better.
Well, you do know, Jake, that most cars have 7 separate computers in them at this point. You buy one. Just to let you know.
I didn't know that, but now I do, and I feel better for it. Thanks, Fred.
Your cars are rolling botnet.
Great, thanks. So all right. So let's say I do all that. Let's say I build a security program that's the right size for my organization. Let's even say that I figure out how to watch it 24/7. Is there 100% guarantee that I won't have a breach? Fred?
Nope. Those words will never come out of my mouth.
Nope.
Unfortunately, I mean, the reality is all preventative controls fail, and it's true more so now than ever before. So that's why I emphasize that visibility component, because even the best stuff, they're going to get around, right? And if you're not able to respond, it can be existential. I mean, a small company may not be able to survive, a ransomware attack or something that all their critical client data gets stolen and gets on the dark web, and nobody's going to do business with you ever again. Right. So I mean, I look at this in a lot of ways as being more important for the small clients, because they'll go out of business. Whereas, if I'm AT&T, I can absorb 10 of these, and it might not even show up on my bottom line, right, at the end of the year. Small company, it's your life, right? And that's why CI security exists and want to work with teams like Frankenstein, because if we don't solve this problem together, it's going to be catastrophic for all of us, frankly. So
and Tony, how do you answer that question when you hear it? I mean, I assume you're, the folks who come to you say, hey, I want to be secure.
Right.
Well, how do you answer that?
There's a lot of different levels. You can spend a little money, you can spend a lot of money. It just depends on how many bricks you want to put up between you and your attackers. And something that y'all talked about, can we build a firewall that will protect us from everyone? And the answer is no. It's 100% no. What you can do is have monitoring in place that lets us know when it happens. The difference between an attack that sits on your network for 3 days or 30 minutes is huge. So, that's like one of the main reasons why we got in with CI. You guys are awesome at that, having logging in place and stuff that notifies us when that kind of nefarious stuff is going on. As far as what we do, we find on smaller companies, everybody has to have a router. And, everybody, I'm trying to save money. So do I want the $600 router or the $50 router? Well, I might not want the 50, but I'll take that $80 router. Still, it's a residential grade router. We run into these all the time. So when we approach one of these, somebody comes to us talking about security, that's kind of the first thing we do is let's get a bigger block in between you and the internet. So that's kind of one of the first things we do. Which increases their security immensely. Just having Matt loves the logging, and you want to get that sonic wall or that Cisco in there with logging turned on. So again, we can follow the breadcrumbs back whenever something happens, and then we just go from there. It goes on with, like y'all were talking about, patching, which is funny. I've been clicking the thing in the corner of my computer all day long, going restart later, restart later, restart later. I might do that for 2 days, but anyway, you shouldn't do that. So it's a lot of things, and you can get a lot more secure without spending a lot of money. Spend a little bit of money on the router. I know two-factor authentication it's a pain. It's another thing that you have to do, but it will save you. And it doesn't cost any more money. It's already there. Doing your patching, it's little things like that we can stack up. Here's the 20 things that we have to do to make you secure. You can kind of do these 10 yourself. We'll show you how to do it, or we'll come over and do it for you. So there's just many different levels, all the way up to having CI security monitor everything on your network, which we have clients that we use y'all for, and y'all are great at it. So, it just depends on what you have budgeted for your security, how important your security is, and the will to get it done. I will say that I've been doing this since 1999, and it's probably been the last 2 years that security has ramped up. I get more calls about security than anything now. It's just a cost of business. Just like now you have to pay $5 or $10 a month per account at Office 365 or Gmail. You also need to figure in the $50 a year for antivirus and this much a year for spam filter, and it just becomes a part of business. And people are catching on, because it used to be that, I heard about a guy that got hacked. I bet everybody in the room, everybody that knows everybody in this room, all has either been attacked personally or somebody in their family or business has been attacked. It's just everywhere.
And so for folks in the room here, I'm curious, I assume everybody gets a ton of phishing emails every day. If anybody has a good phishing story, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'll share one, which is, I got one, just after Christmas. And it looked so good. It looked just like a UPS thing. And it said, if your package was delayed, UPS wants to compensate you. And it wasn't crazy. It wasn't like, we'll give you $500. It was UPS will give you, $10 compensation. Just click here. And, it turned the email address, was some crazy, like UPS, 7777777 at gmail.com. But I mean, it looked real. And in our security awareness training, we use that one. So yeah, I'm curious, folks, if if you get things, if the Nigerian princes come after you, put it in the chat. I'm curious to hear what you see. All right. So let's say I want to improve my security program. What's the timeline like on it? Like if I call you today and I'm like, all right, my security program needs an update. I want I want to turn on 2FA. I want to check my router. I want to do, Tony, the things you and Matt were talking about. And then, Fred, I want to do, an assessment of where I am. How long does that take? Tony, how long does it take you all? And then Fred, will get to you.
It's the different layers. So if we got a call today and, hey, I would like to turn on two-factor authentication, we'll have a remote guy call you right within 30 minutes to an hour, and we'll have that turned on, and that part will be out of your life. It'll be done, and then we just talk about it. What else do you want? And we kind of talk about the business and what they have and what they have to lose, and just take it a step at a time. Okay, well, we decided we're going to go ahead and get a router. All right, we'll get that going. We order it from Amazon. It'll be here in 2 days. We'll get that installed, and we keep setting up the layers. And if once we get all of our layers done, that's to the best of our ability. And if they still want to keep going higher, then we bring CI security in and keep climbing that ladder, keep putting those walls up.
Yeah,
happen quickly.
Yeah, one of the things that I notice, I go on site quite frequently. Especially for like new clients and new customers. And one of the very first thing, even if I'm not there to look at their security, the very first thing I do when I get there is take a look at their network. How are they configured? Are they using the modem and router that comes with Spectrum? Do they have a firewall or something in place? What are they using? And more often than not, I actually see people still using their Spectrum routers and modems rather than having like an actual device in between there to manage that. Or they're using a home router, for example, like an ASUS router, which looks really fancy, not nearly as secure as you think it might be.
Yeah.
And so when I'm on site, I do that a courtesy evaluation, just like a glance over. It's not a full evaluation, but it's usually thorough enough to get people aware that maybe I should increase my security posture just a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, and so Fred, from your standpoint, once folks want to advance past there, if they engage with you and your team, what does that look like?
It can be a number of things. Most people like to have some sort of baseline assessment and a roadmap built. It's always a fantastic first step. Again, we do specialize in building roadmaps that are appropriate for our clients. In other words, if we come back in 2 years, we really want to be confident that you actually are able to achieve everything in the roadmap. We don't want to hand you if you're the Pentagon, this is what you want to do, right? We want to build something for you. So that's a critical component. And there's other things you may want. For example, if you have a website and your business is utterly dependent on that website, you may want us to do a web application security assessment against that, because that may be your business, right? May be encapsulated in that website. That may be a place. And then there's always security awareness training. We've been alluding to this the whole time, that people are one of the weakest links. And we can help you by doing some very simple training. We can build up a program for you. And Jake, you might even want to mention our Friday security awareness freebie that digs into a whole bunch of this phishing stuff, very user-oriented and frankly a life skill that we're trying to teach people. So
yeah, I mean, tell folks what Fred's talking about there. So when the pandemic hit, one of the things we heard from our clients is, we can't do the trainings that we do. Some of our clients are hospitals, for example, and they got pretty busy during the pandemic, and they actually have regulatory pressure. Every year they have to do training with their folks. And so we said, you know what, we'll just do it for free. And so in October, we started doing it. We expected 10, 12 people per session and ended up with one session with 300 people in it. We've trained now almost 2,000 people. And we moved to every other Friday because every Friday was a lot. I was losing my voice. So, and it's really all about me and my voice. So I just put the link in the chat. If folks want to sign up, you can sign up for free there. We'd love to have you come. and I also want to acknowledge what Gabriella and Cindy are saying here in the chat. You know, I asked about phishing. Gabriella said, got a really authentic phishing message to my student email account from UT Austin asking me to log into my student account. Yeah, hope you didn't give them your password. And then Cindy, I have an animal rescue. Got a phishing email that there were donations on PayPal and I had not claimed them. Oh, that's a good one. And Cindy, by the way, thank you for doing an animal rescue. We're big animal fans and we appreciate the work that you do very, very much. That's awesome. You know, and Ginny, who actually works with us, a huge animal person. So she Cindy, you and Ginny should talk. So I want to share another slide here, which is sort of our menu of what we do. So this is what we do at CI. So the Critical Insight security program includes all of these things. It can get really confusing. I'm going to walk you through it briefly here. Cindy says, I can give away dogs for your prize at the end. Oh, Cindy,
that's great.
We love you. So starting on the right here, so the assessments. These are the assessments that Fred was talking about. Fred, there are two kinds of assessments, right?
Well, there's a whole bunch of different kinds, but in general, we can focus on some very narrow things. And there's standard risk assessments and assessments that people do annually, like for HIPAA, or if you're a credit union, or if you take credit cards, right? All that sort of thing.
And then, and then further down we have the testing, and the testing includes you may or may not have ever heard the term penetration testing. Those are the good guy hackers that break into your system so that they can show you how they did it. And Matt wants to be that guy, right, Matt?
Oh yeah, I'm actually days away from finishing up my cert, so.
And our and we awesome work with Matt. We actually we have a Marine on staff. You never call somebody a former Marine, so he's a Marine, and he leads up our penetration testing team. And I don't think he's ever failed, right, Fred? He always gets in.
No, they always get something.
Yeah. The other thing we do is sort of your hygiene. You know, we can act if you need it. You know, we can act as your head of cybersecurity. We can help you with policy review and development. Security awareness training, we do it for free unless you want a specific one for your organization. And then we'll charge you for that. And then the log retention and compliance review. You know, earlier Matt and Tony were talking about needing those logs. If a bad guy gets in, you want to know how they got in, and that's what the logs tell you. And then on this side, managed detection response. So this is the 24/7, 365 people watching your network. Oh God, I didn't even say this earlier. Put everybody, while I'm talking, put in your guess in the chat for the average amount of time a hacker is in a system in North America before they're caught. It's called dwell time, from that point that they get in to the point they're caught. How many days do you think it is? 5 days, 10 days, 1,000 days? Put your guess in the chat. And so obviously we do managed detection response. I talked about doing it for O365, AWS, Azure, and then incident response. So if something does happen, we're there for you. We help you with tabletop exercises so you would know what to do if somebody got in. Where we can do a retainer model so that if somebody got in, you could call us, we'd be there for you. And then if something bad happens, obviously the first folks you want to call are Tony and Matt. But if you want to go really much deeper into forensics, we can sort of help them with that on your behalf. All right, so let's see. What did people say? Art said 15 days. Dana said 3 days. Steve said 7 days. Jennifer said 4 days. Lindsay said 7 days. Cindy said a month. We'll call that 30 days. Oh boy. The average, yeah, it's a good spread. And you're all wrong. Although using Jeopardy rules, Cindy won. The average amount of time a bad guy is in a system before being caught is 205 days, which is crazy. Tommy, you knew the answer ahead of time, or you said it after I said it. Yeah, it's 205 days. In fact, in healthcare, it's 400 days, which is even crazier. And if you think about, do you all remember when Sony got hacked by the North Koreans. They were in there for a full year, and that's Sony. Like, you don't think Sony knew? Like, it's crazy, right? And so earlier, Matt, you were talking about the bad guys getting in and putting a ticking time bomb on the system, right?
Yep. Opening up back doors. Yeah. I mean, the idea, if you're getting hacked by a hacker, their goal is not to be found. They don't want to know you're there. So if you're getting a bunch of spam and whatnot, it's because either one, they've already been there for gosh knows how many days and they've gotten all the data that they want, or it's a bot, in which case, there's no active person there, but they're just trying to hijack something. But in general, yeah, if you got someone in your system, you're not going to know it until it's already way too late.
Too late.
Yeah, and that's not good. And so, we that's what the managed detection response is there for. We can see the weird activity as it's happening. And then we'll help you get them out real quick. So one of the I remember I'm in marketing. One of the marketing catchphrases I love is, we cut it down from months to minutes. And how fast they get it out. As we go toward the end here, I do want to give people the survey, so that keep that link on the right. The funny thing about giving people links after you talk about security is nobody wants to click it. But I promise it's real. I promise it's legit.
I'll check it for you guys. Hang on a minute.
Which is also what a bad guy would say. So
Sure.
trust me, which is also what a bad guy would say.
It looks safe.
So there you go. I also want to share our email addresses. If you need us for anything, or you want to get in touch after this, you can do it through the survey, or you can do it at those email addresses. You can see mine is the vanity one of first name at ci.security, because I'm the vain one. I guess Tony and Matt also vain because they just use their first names. So if folks have last minute questions, put them in the chat here. But let's do some final thoughts here. Fred, final thoughts for folks here?
Yeah, for the folks we have on here, what we said, patch, multi-factor authentication, that's your first things to do. If you haven't done them, please consider that. I think that's the most important things you can possibly do.
Tony?
I agree with Fred. Also, if you have a question, ask us. I get a lot of times I'll get an email forwarded to me going, "Hey, what do you think about this?" So, and then we just turn it around, no charge or anything. We just take a look at it and say, no, delete it, or yeah, it's good.
Matt?
I think security is perhaps my biggest pet peeve. And things like awareness, using RDP, using not using a firewall or something. These are things that are extremely important for every business. But that security level is just the start. It goes much higher. And thanks to CI Security, we can go to those heights to provide the level of security that's appropriate for you. So definitely, if you don't know where your security posture is, reach out. Let us know. We will be happy to evaluate you and give you an initial impression and kind of go from there.
Yep.
Thank you. And I wanted to I wanted to leave folks with one other final thought, which is security is also a business differentiator. Maybe not the animal rescue, but a lot of folks are in, competitive businesses here. If your website doesn't have a security certificate on it, that's, as the marketing guy, I can say, folks need to see that. If you're in a competitive, business, being able to say, yeah, we checked all the boxes and we know we're more secure than the competitors. It's a competitive differentiator. We have one customer that ended up winning a ton of business after starting to work with us because they got a checklist from somebody they were working with, and they could check off yes, yes, yes. It's a small energy company. Jerry asks a question here, Fred. How often should you update and review the computer?
Well, you should, the easiest way is to turn on automatic updates, and that way it will pull on its own when it sees an update, even an out of cycle update, like this week there was one. It'll pull that down. It will hopefully try to install it within the next 24 hours and nag you through the process. But use automatic updates, right? Then you don't have to worry about that. As far as looking at things, the reality is we look at things 24 hours a day. We never stop looking. If you're a small company, maybe once a week taking a look. But again, as you've heard, a lot of bad things can happen in that time. So if it's something like maybe the firewall that throws alerts or an antivirus that throws alerts, make sure those are coming to your desktop, maybe an email alert, so you in the morning can review those. And if something looks strange, you can dig in a little deeper at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Good answers. So one last plug for the survey. Remember, you're helping us get better doing these. We're going to do a bunch more of these with Matt and Tony as well. And we want to know, were we any good? Was this helpful? Tell us. So that's one thing. Also, we want to be able to do donations and we want to be able to give you gift cards if you want them. So thank you very much, everybody. Tony, Matt, Fred, thank you. This was awesome. We'll do it again and let's keep everybody secure. Or as secure as you can.
Yep.
Matt, did you have one last thing there?
Yeah, wasn't there something about a raffle?
Oh, you mean for the car? For the car?
Yeah, for the car. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the dog?
No, I was going to say it's the dog. So
I went in on that one.
So Cindy, we're going to need a dog for the raffle. Everybody in the chat, put in a number 1 through. No, just kidding. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. This was awesome, and have a fantastic pre-Friday.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.